Welcome to the Confessions of a CRA podcast. I'm your host, Jasmyn Adams. I went from a struggling, aspiring CRA to landing my first CRA job with no monitoring experience or certification, and was able to fast track my career to a senior CRA making six figures in less than 2 years, and then on to multiple six figures plus a CRA coaching business. I teach aspiring CRAs how to attract and break into their first CRA position with no monitoring experience or certification and fast track their career using mindset and career development strategies. Now, let's dive all the way in. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a CRA. Today we have another exciting topic. As I promised last week, we're going to be talking about how to assess where you are in your CRA job search and identify your specific problem. Hopefully by the end of this episode, you guys will know exactly how to determine where you are in your job search and how to identify your specific problem and figure out your specific needs. So I'm excited wherever you're joining me from, the US. We have a lot of listeners in other countries. So Canada, Mexico, Germany, Australia, the UK, even a lot of different countries in Africa. All of my listeners, welcome and thank you for joining me here today. So, before we get started, I always like to give you a little story, right? A story to kind of bring in the point. So specifically, I want to share a little bit more about my CRA journey. And there came a point, probably about maybe a year after I graduated from grad school in 2012, in my journey where I was literally getting nowhere. And if you've listened to my CRA journey, the episode where I shared my CRA journey, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I was literally getting nowhere, and I was doing all the things that I thought I should be doing anyways. I was applying to everything that I saw. I was reaching out to everyone that I could find, any and everyone in the industry. I had a conversation with them. I picked their brain. I asked for resources. I asked for additional connections. I have my LinkedIn profile set up. I hired a professional resume writing service. I sought out mentors. I took extra courses. I literally did all of the things, right? All of the things that, probably you are experiencing right now, where people recommend that you do some of these things. And some of the things were contradictory. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I was literally trying to follow all the advice that I was given. I was doing research about the industry so I could familiarize myself with the terms, with the acronyms, literally all of the things, you guys. And I had my degree. I had some basic experience, some basic clinical research experience. Because even after I finally got that first CTA job, I was still running into the same issues. So even after I got the experience that they told me to get, because I was also a study coordinator, right, for a little bit. So I had the bachelor's degree. I had a master's degree. I was a study coordinator for a very brief period, and then I landed a CTA role. And I was still struggling to land that first CRA job. So it came to a point where I was like, OMG. I really started to question, was the CRA role, was it really for me? I came to a point where I was literally thinking about just flat out giving up. And I hate to say it, but I felt like my dream was going down the toilet. And it sucked. It really sucks because I knew I had what it takes. I knew I loved science. I loved medicine. I loved research. It was comprised of literally all the things that I had discovered that I loved throughout my education and my career and my past experience, my past jobs. And I couldn't seem to get anywhere. Anytime there was a lead, I even had people referring me, right? I had CRAs that referred me to their companies. Still nothing, no hits. And so I had to take a pause and I had to reassess my situation. And number one, I had to ask myself, was I in this for the long haul? Was I willing to put everything I got into this and commit 100% regardless of what happened, regardless of the outcome, and just stay focused and committed to the process and landing that first role? And there was no other career that I was really interested in at the time. And there was no other career that I really felt that I connected to on the level of the CRA role. So I was like, yes. There's never been anything in your past history that was challenging that you gave up on. I will say that this was like the one thing that I had experienced up until that point anyways, that I had so much trouble gaining any leeway. Like, I had some challenges. Trust me, guys, when I say that I had some challenges throughout high school and my undergraduate degree, and of course, absolutely my graduate degree. I had so many challenges throughout my education and my career up until this point, but never had I ever experienced such a freaking wall as I experienced when came time to land my first CRA role. So I was like flabbergasted, shocked, stunned, amazed. I mean, all the words that you can think of to describe somebody who was completely just like almost in, a traumatic state. That was me. So I took that pause, I reassessed, and I started to analyze. I've always been a very analytical person. That's how I've gotten to where I've gotten, at least to that point. And then, throughout my career and up until this point now. So I sat down and I just honed into my natural skills, my natural strengths, my natural abilities, and started to analyze. And I broke it down and try to be as objective as possible, taking myself completely out of it, taking all of that energy of woe is me, why they aren't choosing me. I know I'm smarter than this person, or I have more experience than that person, or I can't believe she got the job and I didn't get the job. I took all of that negative energy out and I just analyzed the data, so to speak, of what I had been doing, what I had gotten some progress on, what there was absolutely no progress on. And I analyzed that information, that data, and I assessed what I was doing wrong and where I needed improvement. And that was ultimately, that pause actually saved my career. It truly, honestly did, because that's when I took an honest look at everything and I stopped taking advice from everybody else. I stopped seeking everybody else, thoughts, opinions, feedback, all that stuff, because at the end of the day, it was all contradictory and nobody really had anything consistent to say that was actually even honestly producing any results. So I was like, okay, let's step back and let's just go at this by myself. That's what I had been doing. That's what I had for success in my past years. So I was like, let's just do this again. So of course I took the research, the data that I had, but then I took that and I analyzed it and came up with my own conclusion. And that's when I started making progress. So today I want to talk about how you too can take a look at your own CRA job search. And based off of the data, the information, based off of where you currently are, how you can take that information and then identify your specific problems so you can hone in into your specific needs and make some progress and some leeway in your CRA job search yourself. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And first off, I want to kind of briefly just hone in on the fact or just share with you that I always tell my clients this, and anybody that I speak with really, but I always share that a lot of times people get caught up in thinking that the interview is just the actual day of the interview appointment or the interview meeting. And that couldn't be any further from the truth. The interview is actually not just a day, but it's a process. And it's a process that starts I wouldn't even say from the time the recruiter sends you that email or makes that phone call and asks you, are you interested and you want a phone screen? But the interview process really starts from the moment that you put yourself out there, whether it be your online presence, for example, your LinkedIn profile, or whether it be in person, for example, at a job fair, or if you're networking with a recruiter or a connection, for example. So the interview process starts literally long before you even get an interview offer. And that's what I want you guys to keep in mind throughout this process, is that you need to be on point at all times in whatever you do, whether it's an email, whether it's a direct message, whether it's a quick phone conversation, whatever it is, that is a part of the interview process, and you need to take it all serious. Don't ever think that the interviewer is having a casual conversation, or they're your friend, or a recruiter is a casual conversation, or even someone that you may be potentially networking with. And it's not to say that you shouldn't be yourself, or that you shouldn't be comfortable, or that you shouldn't be authentic, but you have to go at it with keeping in mind that this is a part of the process, and you must be representative of your brand, and that you're marketing yourself at all times. And that's why it's so important that your personal brand and your marketing plan truly aligns with who you are. And that's something that I work very hard with my coaching clients on, is making sure that their values, their philosophies, their principles of their personal brand really does align with who they truly are. Because when you're trying to, portray this person publicly that doesn't truly align with who you authentically are, then that creates a lot of chaos and confusion and contradiction. So keep that in mind, guys. I just wanted to throw that little tidbit out there. So how can you determine or assess where you are in your job search process, and what does your assessment mean? So let's take a look at some of the different scenarios or possibilities of where you might potentially be in your job search. And then we'll go over some potential problems that your current position might allude to. So number one, for example, if you aren't getting any callbacks, if you aren't getting any phone screens, if you aren't getting any interviews, and the only thing that you are seeing or getting is automatic rejection emails, then you could have several different problems. So number one, it could obviously be a resume problem. Maybe your resume doesn't clearly tell your story. Maybe you didn't use enough keywords. Maybe you have a lot of grammatical or formatting errors. Maybe you didn't tailor your resume specifically to the job description. There could be several different issues there, but you could have a resume problem. You could have an online presence problem. What a lot of people don't understand is that oftentimes when recruiters find potential candidates, the first thing they do is they look for you online. So I always argue that a invisible candidate is what I call anyways, an invisible candidate, or a candidate that they can't find online, or non-existent candidate, is often worse than someone who has a poor online presence. And now, of course, that's arguable, right? Some might disagree with me, but that's just my personal opinion. And so I always say that you must create an online presence. That's one of the things that I work very hard with my clients, and making sure that not only do they have an online presence, but they create a strong online presence that's truly representative of them and their personal brand. And then another problem that you could potentially have is that you aren't simply leveraging your network. So maybe you aren't networking at all, God forbid. That's the worst thing that you can do. Or maybe you are networking, but perhaps you're not asking the right questions, or you're asking the wrong questions, or you're saying too much, or you're not saying enough, right? There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different nuances, and there's a lot of strategies and techniques that you can use to truly leverage and take advantage of networking. So you could have a potential networking problem, and then it could also just be your limiting beliefs. I have not had a client yet who we didn't have to really dig and challenge and reshape their limiting beliefs and turn those into empowering beliefs. And what do I mean when I say limiting beliefs? Things like nobody will call me back, or thinking things like it's too hard to find my first CRA job, or this is my favorite one. You need to know somebody, right? Nobody's going to call me back because I don't know nobody, and you need to know somebody. Or they're never going to give me a chance, or, I might as well give up. I didn't go to the right school. Nobody likes me. You have to find a recruiter or a hiring manager or a company that likes you, and nobody likes me. The list goes on, but you can get the idea of what I mean when I say limiting beliefs. And that mindset, a lot of people that come to me, all of my clients, like I said, they challenge me and they're like, no way does my mindset have anything to do with why I'm not getting a job or why I'm not making any progress, right? A lot of people are so adamant and that mindset has nothing to do with it. And that's not true. Your mindset has everything to do with everything that you do, y'all. Everything. Not just landing your first CRA job, but literally everything in your life. Every action, your current reality, everything started with the mind. It started with a thought. And I know this episode isn't about mindset, and I could go on and on for days. So I won't drag out the point. We'll save that for another episode. But hear me when I say, and hear me when I'm saying this, not from like a preachy standpoint or you need to think this or you need to do that, but literally because this is my life and this is my own practice. And I spend hours and hours every single week working on my mindset, not just by myself, but with my coaches, with my therapist, with, I have invested in a lot of different programs and a lot of different groups and a lot of different people working on my mindset. And trust me, it is the best investment that you will ever make. So I digress. Back on to how you can determine where you are in your job search. So the second position that you might find yourself in is if you're getting a response. So maybe it's via email or a phone call from the recruiter, but then after this communication, you're getting ghosted. Or after you reply and send over your resume, you're getting ghosted, right? So again, it can go back to some of the problems that I mentioned earlier. Maybe you have that resume problem. Maybe you have some limiting beliefs problems, but then you may also have some soft skills problems, right? A lot of people think about the hard technical skills and they think about, oh, I need monitoring experience, or, oh, I need this other kind of experience as a CTA or a study coordinator or a trial master file experience or data experience. Things like that are hard skills, right? But they don't think about, a lot of y'all don't think about the soft skills, and the soft skills can involve communication. It can involve email or phone etiquette. It can involve just those simple things. Does this person represent someone of leadership qualities? Is this person representative of someone that has good time management or organizational or team player qualities, right? And so maybe there was something that you said during that phone call or that email that just rubbed someone the wrong way. Or maybe it didn't rub them the wrong way, but maybe it just didn't speak to what they were told that specific job or that specific role was looking for. So maybe it was something that, they're seeking somebody that requires something very specific, maybe, a specific therapeutic area or something of that nature, and you just didn't meet it. But there could be some soft skill issues going on as well. And then also potentially online presence. That could be an issue as well. Most likely not, but potentially another issue. And so a third situation that you may potentially find yourself in is if you have gotten at least one phone screen, but you haven't made it any further than that. So again, this could be another soft skills issue. Maybe during that phone screen, you said some things that didn't necessarily rub the recruiter the wrong way, but maybe they just weren't in line with the specific criteria that the hiring manager is looking for. Again, it could also be another online presence issue. Maybe once they screened you, they looked you up online, and then the things that they saw, they weren't exactly impressed with in comparison to another candidate, or maybe they didn't see you at all, right? Maybe you're one of those invisible job seekers, as I call them, and you don't have an online presence at all. So it could be that, or it could be potentially your interviewing skills. So maybe you didn't know how to answer the specific industry-specific questions that you were being asked. Maybe you gave too much information. I always say TMI during job interviews is not the way to go. Make sure you stay on topic. Make sure you stay relevant. Make sure you answer the question at hand. If you have additional information that is relevant and specific to the question, by all means share it. But do not go off on a tangent and do not open up a can of worms that you cannot close. Maybe you gave some responses that made yourself look bad. Of course, you didn't do it on purpose. Nobody wants to make themselves look bad on purpose, right? But maybe inadvertently, unconsciously, subconsciously, you were unaware and you gave some responses that didn't exactly put yourself in the best light, right? Maybe you went off on some tangents. Maybe you didn't give enough information for the behavioral and situational questions and you just gave like a very basic generic response. Maybe you didn't show enough interest and they thought you didn't really care about the position and you were just there. Maybe your salary expectations were too high. Maybe you had poor communication skills. There's several different things that could allude to some specific interviewing skill issues, but it could be interview skills related. So that gives you an idea of potential problems if you've gotten at least one phone screen and then nowhere else. This podcast is sponsored by the CRA Solution. Are you an aspiring CRA struggling to get your foot in the door and land your first CRA position, almost ready to give up on your dream? Well, I have the perfect solution for your problem. The CRA Solution Mentorship, a 12-week online course and coaching program where you learn how to attract and break into your first CRA position with no monitoring experience or certification. After you go through this program, you'll no longer spend hours searching and applying to jobs because you'll have a proven job attraction system that consistently brings job opportunities directly to you via networking and LinkedIn. You'll also have a clear, thorough understanding of how to successfully brand and market yourself throughout your CRA job search, to strategically sell yourself and land your CRA dream job offer without feeling lost or confused, wondering if you're on the right path. If you're ready to land your first CRA job, visit aspiringcra.com and book a one-on-one sales call today. So let's say you've gotten at least one interview. So you're past the phone screen. You now have an official interview with a hiring manager, team lead, team manager, something like that, clinical trial manager. And then you got nowhere after that. So again, this could go back to the same things as getting that one phone screen. You could have a soft skills problem. You could have an interviewing skills problem. You could also have limiting belief problems. It could go back to you just showing up, not your best confident self, and going into the situation with that negative undertone. And a lot of people don't get this. They tell me oftentimes, well, I didn't tell them that, I didn't think they would choose me, or that you need to know somebody, or it's too hard to land my first position. I didn't tell them those things. But if that's your belief and that's truly your mindset, you don't have to speak those words, because guess what? It's written all over your face. It's written all over your posture and your demeanor and your attitude. So you don't even have to say those words for people to get that vibe from you. So it could be your limiting beliefs. And then another thing is that maybe your resume didn't match what you discussed during the interview. I always tell people that in preparation for the interview, go over your resume, go over your CV. I cannot tell you how many times people don't even realize what's on their resume and their CV. They get to the interview, they're asked about it, and then they can't even address it. They don't even remember that it's on there. So that's the easiest way, the easiest opportunity to show up and present your best self is by familiarizing yourself with your resume, with your CV, knowing it inside and out, because anything that you put on there is fair game during the interview. And for some reason, a lot of people think, well, it's on my resume, it's on my CV, so why would they ask me about it? Well, unfortunately, it's a lot of people out here that are pretending to have experience and education and skills that, quite frankly, they just don't have. They've lied about it. They've made things up. So the best way to know if a candidate is truly telling the truth And if they are who they say they are on paper, is by asking them to address it in person, asking them to address it on video camera, live and in action, and by asking them to tell your story in your own words and seeing if you can repeat and replicate what's on your resume. And that could create a lot of problems in your interview if you are not able to do so. So another area or another position that you might find yourself in is if you aren't getting any recruiters or any hiring managers reaching out to you on LinkedIn or other social platforms or any job search sites. If you aren't getting anybody that's reaching out to you and inquiring about, do you want to apply to this position or are you currently job searching? That's another issue. A lot of people think that the only way that they can get a job is if they apply. And that is the worst way, actually, to get a job. Not to say that, obviously, it's a lot of people out here that's getting jobs through submitting applications the old-fashioned traditional way. But the best way is when you put yourself in a position so that you are attracting recruiters and attracting hiring managers and attracting the right attention so you don't even have to apply. And they're coming to you and asking, are you interested in the jobs that they have? That's the best way, because some opportunities you just won't know about, or they start seeking out people before they even post them. And that's how you want to get found and identified. That's the best way. So if you aren't getting any recruiters, any hiring managers reaching out to you, then you may have, again, a soft skills problem. You may have a resume problem, a limiting belief problem, or potentially you may have something on your profile, on your LinkedIn profile specifically, or even your other social platforms, especially like Facebook or Instagram, that gives them a bad impression. So I always tell people, and with my clients specifically, we work on creating a job attraction system, with LinkedIn primarily being like that ultimate engine of the system, but also cleaning up your other social media platforms as well. Your brand should be consistent across the board. So think about that when you're truly being your authentic self. And a lot of people, I find, because so many people aren't in tune and in touch with who they truly are, they show up different ways depending on the platform. They show up different ways depending on who they're around in their lives, right? They might show up one way differently around their friends versus their family versus their coworkers. So this all goes back to that mindset work that I was telling you, which is priceless. And part of that is really figuring out who you are as an individual. And that will then in turn help you figure out who you are as a professional, because the two should really honestly align. And then in turn help you figure out your personal brand, because everything, again, your values, your philosophies, your mission, everything should be in line. And so giving a bad impression on a social media platform can definitely cause you to not be attracting the right attention. Now, if you aren't getting any recruiters or any hiring managers reaching out to you via email, so again, without you applying, the same thing. You might have a poor online presence. You might be that invisible job seeker that I've been telling you guys about. Maybe you aren't leveraging networking. And again, going back to those limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs will affect every single area of your job search and your life. And I cannot say that enough. And okay, so if you are getting referred, let's say you've gotten referred by a CRA or someone else, an employee at one of these CROs or sponsor companies, and you've gotten referred for a CRA position and they've submitted you and you heard nothing, crickets, right? So it could just be the company. A lot of times people think that, okay, I've been referred, so I should get, definitely make some progress here, definitely hear something back. And that's just not true. I often find that referrals are kind of like the hardest way to get in. Now, this is pre-COVID. I will throw out that disclaimer. This is pre-COVID. After COVID and now, it seems to be a little bit different, just because everybody is struggling to not only keep and retain their current CRAs, but bring in new CRAs just because the research industry in general has picked up at such an ridiculously crazy pace. So everybody needs more CRAs in general. And it's always kind of been like that in the industry where it's always kind of hiring. But now there's like a crazy number of CRAs that need it, in addition to people trying to retain the ones that they already have. So there's this revolving door of CRAs leaving. So we need to replace those. Plus we needed more CRAs to begin with. So keeping that in mind, that prior COVID, referrals was kind of like a harder way to get in. Now I'm hearing that it's not quite as bad, but it could just be the company. Again, it could go back to your resume, the things that I talked about earlier. Maybe you aren't clearly telling your story. Maybe you don't have enough keywords. Maybe you have grammatical errors. Grammatical errors, y'all, are killing people. People don't review. They don't review for grammatical errors. They don't review for formatting. And just so you know, a quick and easy way to go through your resume and make sure the grammar, the formatting is not an issue, you can either use JobScans or Grammarly. Those are two very good platforms, ways that you can make sure you're not one of those people. Maybe you aren't tailoring specifically to the job description. There's a lot of different things. Maybe your resume doesn't showcase your strengths, accomplishments, and achievements very well. There's a lot of different things that could be creating some resume challenges or resume problems. Of course, limiting beliefs. I'm always going to throw that in there. And then going back to, you may have an online presence issue. So another position that you may find yourself in is if you're getting referred by an employee and you got an interview, but you didn't get the offer. So you just received that traditional auto rejection email, or you got a call from a recruiter and they said, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to extend you an offer. So most likely, if you've made it this far, you've gotten a referral and they brought you all the way in for an interview. Honestly, it's most likely your interviewing skills and or a combination of that plus your limiting beliefs. I'm going to always say limiting beliefs, because your mindset can either make you or break you, truly. And hear me when I say that. But most likely it's your interviewing skills. And going back to the things that I discussed earlier throughout this episode, but you really got to make sure you're ready for these interviews, because the last thing you want to do is get all the way to the end and go through this whole process, this whole struggle, this whole challenge, and get to the final championship game, right? And then blow it. So make sure you're always ready for those interviews. But it could also be some soft skill issues as well. And that also goes to interviewing well. Soft skills is something that is going to always be relevant, pertinent, and useful to your advantage in every area of your life. So being able to exert those soft skills in communicating with people, that's going to be key to having a successful interview. So it could be that. It could go back to potentially your resume. Maybe you weren't able to articulate or accurately express what was on your resume in words during the interview, so they felt like there were some discrepancies there. Or maybe they potentially loved you, but they just had a better candidate and they will consider you in the future when other positions open up. Sometimes, y'all, it's just as simple as that. You did a great job. You did everything you were supposed to do, but it's just not your time. Timing is also everything too. So don't get discouraged. Either way, your time is coming as long as you don't give up. And then lastly, if you've gotten referred by an employee and you got an interview, but then you were absolutely ghosted and they didn't call you, they didn't send an email, you've been following up and you haven't heard nothing, right? So these are the situations where I hear that people are the most frustrated and they're the most angry and they're the most outraged. Well, guess what? It could just be the company. It could be the recruiter. And I know y'all want to hear me say, well, shame on them. Why did they do that? They shouldn't do that. But we don't have energy to waste on that, right? We are focused on our goals and on our dreams, and we don't have energy to try to figure out what other people are doing or why they didn't do something. So don't even waste energy on that, because it could just be the company. Maybe the recruiter is so overwhelmed and they have such a high workload that they don't honestly have time to call everybody back. Or maybe you just fell through the cracks, and as bad as that may sound, maybe you fell through the cracks and they forgot. Maybe they went out on vacation and they forgot. Who knows, right? But if you've done your job and you've done your due diligence, just know that you didn't want to work for that company anyway. You don't want to work for somebody who doesn't have the time to follow up, or somebody that even gives that type of impression. So release it, move on, and if it's for you, it will come back around in due time. Of course, the obvious answer is maybe the interview went really bad, right? And they didn't even take the time to respond. That could be an option. One thing that I always tell my clients to do is record their interviews. You can just simply record it on your phone. And then for me, of course, the people that work with me, they share with me and then we go through it together. But if you don't have a mentor, if you're not working with a coach, then potentially share it with a friend or colleague or someone whose advice that you trust, someone who is most importantly in a position or have been in the position of where you want to go, and ask for their feedback. It could have been your soft skills again, maybe, hard skills, technical skills, experience, education, all that was on point. But maybe your soft skills were off point. Nobody wants to work with anybody that has an attitude, that has a negative attitude, that has a very pessimistic attitude, that just doesn't give off the team player vibes. So that could be it. Maybe simply put, the position got pulled or canceled, and they're no longer hiring for that specific position, or it's on hold and they're currently not hiring for that position. And, they'll reach back out when it gets off hold and it's active again. Who knows, right? There's so many reasons, but that's why I say we don't have any energy, any time to waste on trying to figure out why, because there's so many other positions out there and there's so many other opportunities, and we want to use that energy towards those things. And that's why, going back to mindset, going back to limiting beliefs, where all these things are so important, because it helps you stay focused and it helps you stay on point and helps you use your energy towards the positive things that will keep you going. So please keep in mind that I'm basing this assessment on a trend or pattern, meaning that it has happened to you at least 2, really 3 times back to back. So if it happened to you one time, it's most likely just an issue with that specific recruiter or that specific company, and it may not have anything to do with you as a candidate. So this assessment is based off of a trend. And a good way to assess phone screens and interviews, like I said earlier, I want to make this point again, is to record them and have someone, preferably an industry professional, career coach, recruiter, or some other type of career development expert, someone that's been in the position where you want to go as a CRA, but have someone listen and provide you with objective feedback. You may also be able to do this yourself if you can truly be objective and not take things personally. So going through all of these different things, these different scenarios and your potential problems, this is why I don't recommend done-for-you services where you have someone that, you fill out a questionnaire and they do your resume, or you have someone where you fill out a questionnaire and they do your whole LinkedIn profile, or you just have that one-off session and somebody preps you for an interview and then you're off on your own, you do the interview. This is why I don't recommend those type of services, simply because there's so many different potential problems that you may have. And the only way to truly get to the bottom of it is to do a full assessment and to work with someone on a one-on-one basis and really dig into their brain and really try to get a true understanding of where they currently are. And you can't get that from a one session or 1 hour or a couple of hours. And that's why my mentorship program is designed to be 12 weeks of weekly one-on-one coaching coupled with online courses where the training is housed, so that not only you can get the training and the tools and the templates and the resources that you need, but that coaching piece is truly essential to helping you get that transformation that I know y'all are looking for. And I know because that's what I was literally looking for when I was in your shoes. So that's why I designed my program this way. And that's why I don't recommend the one-off done-for-you services. Now, there are other career coaches out there, and I'm always going to recommend that you get a mentor, that you get a coach. But keep it in mind as you choose people that there's also some importance in not choosing coaches, career coaches that work with every industry, because every industry is so different and so unique that sometimes what one coach may advise just doesn't apply to landing your first CRA role. So when you're picking out coaches and when you're picking out programs, make sure you're choosing people and programs and things that are in line with your specific unique goals of landing your first CRA position. Has the person who created this program, or the person who is going to be your coach, or the person who created these courses, or the person that you're going to be working with, has that person been where you want to go? Meaning, has that person landed their first CRA job? Did they struggle to land it, or did they have the hookup? And not only that, have they then taken that CRA job and transformed their lives and fast-tracked their careers and gone on to the level that you're seeking to reach? Ask yourself these questions when you're determining what program, what mentor, what coaches you want to work with. So that wraps up today's episode, and the CRA Solution Mentorship is currently open for enrollment. So if you are ready to take your CRA job search to the next level and launch your CRA career and stop struggling alone and really transform your life, then please visit aspiringcra.com. Book a call with me, and I will be more than happy to have a conversation with you and talk about your specific problem, where you are, and how I can help you. You know I like to hear from y'all, so please DM me on LinkedIn if you have any questions about today's episodes, or if you have any topics that you want me to cover. As you know, the things that I cover in these solo episodes are just for you guys. So let me know what you want to hear. Next week, we're going to talk about 3 huge mistakes that's causing you to fail and stopping you from landing your first CRA job. So make sure you subscribe and follow this podcast so you can be notified when it drops, because you don't want to miss it. Thanks for joining me today, and I can't wait to share what I have for you next week. Thanks for hanging out with me. You are now one step closer to hitting your career goals. And if you are an aspiring CRA who wants to take this work further, come work with me inside of my coaching program. You can go visit aspiringcra.com to learn all about it. If you're looking for more inspiration, check out Jasmyn Adams' Aspiring CRA TV on YouTube. And come follow me at Jasmyn Adams or The CRA Solution on LinkedIn. You can also check me out over on Instagram at The CRA Solution. And hey, if you like what you hear, don't forget to follow this podcast and make sure that you download, rate, and review this episode.